So the property is this one. It is Eubank on Sandstone Road in South Croydon. You can see here on the 25th of June 2021, it was bought for £1.186 million. This is the site. And to get an understanding, to find out how you'd find value in a property yourself, you kind of have to take a step back and just view it from a planning officer's point of view. Because ultimately, if you want to develop a site, you're going to need to submit a planning application. And with the planning application becomes an assessment, and each assessment is the same. They run through the same things. So if you can have an eye on that yourself to find out how a property or how an application or a proposed development is kind of assessed, then you're kind of ahead of the game. A lot of people just submit applications and don't know what they're doing with it. So this is the site. It's a 5-bed detached house. And if we go on Street View, we'll kind of get an impression of how this is viewed from the street. So this is effectively one of the key things that a planning officer will do when they'll get on site. So they'll go and do a site visit, and one of the things they're first looking at is, can you see it from public views? As you can see, there's a lot of mature vegetation around the site, which seems to be a characteristic of the area in itself. And because it's up on a bank, seems to be blurred out. Because it's up on a bank, that visibility is kind of blocked even more. You can kind of see it from here. So the first thing to say here is that it's limited from public views. So if we do it from from above, another thing that a planning officer will want to do is kind of assess the property within its surroundings. Is it characteristic of its area? So this is a 2-story property with picture roofs, which is kind of characteristic of the area. However, you'll see next door that this is very uncharacteristic. It hasn't got an original roof, it's got solar panels. So from that point of view, you can kind of assume that development was secured on this site at one point or another. And we'll look at that in more detail in a minute. So it's a residential area, very mature kind of greenery. The properties all have kind of large front gardens or back gardens. Seems to be characteristics. A lot of open space surrounding it. We don't know this now, but we'll want to check things like, is it in an area of is it in a conservation area? So is it an area that has a characteristic that the council want to preserve? So to get an idea of what might be possible on site, again, like I said, you'd look around the surrounding area to see if there's any development happening. And obviously we found this one here, which is very helpful. So we can take a look. And once you know the address, you just go into the local authority search engine, type in that authority plus planning search, and you will get to their search engine. And I have handily found it here. So it's next door. It's called the Red House. And back in 2010, development was secured to demolish all the buildings on site and build 10 flats, 8 2-bedroom and 2 1-bed. So starting straight off, it's interesting to know that demolition was accepted. That's quite often people can kind of assume, oh, we'll just knock it down and it'll be okay. But actually, you've got to check that that's okay, because, like I said, if it's in a conservation area and it's a building that's protected in some way, you'll want to know whether or not you can demolish it, because it's a key characteristic. I mean, if you're going to interested in buying a property, you're looking around it and it's in really poor state of repair, and you think demolishing it would be the best course of action, you'll need to check that. You'll need to check its status, because it might be protected, it might be listed, it might be what's called a positive contributor, and if those things are there, then the principle of demolition becomes quite difficult to achieve. So you need to check all those things. So here we can assume, okay, demolition was accepted and also development was accepted. Now this was refused and went to appeal. We won't dwell on that. But where have we gone here? So yeah, so that's an interesting thing we've learned about the site. So from public views, it's not particularly you can't see it very well from public views. There's development next door where they have secured not only demolition, but they've also secured a large increase in the footprint of the building, so more built floor space. That's interesting. Also, as we zoom out here, we'll see that this site might be best to look at this on maps. We're near a couple of train stations, which, you know, Southern Rail, which provide quick access into London, so it's accessible. And generally speaking, if you're in an accessible area, principle, you know, the opportunity for density, you know, increasing the density of a site, you know, is quite possible. It's a kind of seen as a sustainable way to develop areas if you develop increased density in areas that are highly accessible. Okay, so let's look now what they secured development on this site. So we've gone through all the constraints and the interesting things that are going on around the area. So let's have a look to see what they secured. So if you were to go to Croydon's planning search engine, like I said before, you just type in the address the same way we found the planning history for the neighbouring site. You type in the address, you look for results, and let's just show you what those results look like. This is how I found it. You see all this discharge of conditions. That's just information that you need to secure after you get planning permission. So this is the main permission. So they got principle to demolish the building and erect a block of flats comprising 9 units with parking and landscaping. So, like I said before, they got the principle of demolition, which is, you know, quite a big hurdle to be able to do. They demolished the building and then they got rid of the building and built nine units in the space of one family house. So if we look at some drawings, these are the existing drawings. So this is the house that we saw on Google Maps. It's obviously not been developed yet, or not in Google Maps eyes anyways. And this is what they got permission for. So you can see immediately, if we flick back, they've added a story. They've probably cleaned up the levels in the house. Everything looks to be straightened up. And they've obviously increased the size of the building somewhat. So just like we did, they did their assessment, they submitted their application, they demolished the building, they massively increased the size of the building, and they increased the number of units from 1 to 9. And those 9 units were, let's just see here, there were 2 3-beds, 6 2-beds, and 1 1-bed. So we're in South Croydon, this area only, number of bedrooms. Let's look at the 3-bed units to start with. See if we can find anything of interest. If we go to the map view, because that would be the most helpful, and we'll get an idea of pricing in the local area. So our road is here. This is Sanderstead Road. So this is near our site. Here we go. So that's a detached house for 675. Let's see if we can see anything else. So townhouse, 3-bed apartment, 3-bed townhouse, 600,000. 3-bed apartment, 475,000. So the 2 3-bed apartments, taking the lower end of it, you can assume 475,000. So that's times 2. That's nearly £1 million straight off the bat. So that's what is that? £950,000, and that's just the 3 beds. So if we now change this to 2 beds. Again, looking in a similar area, Sanderstead Road, here we are, 450, that's a similar site to ours. That's 2.7 million just on the 2-bed flats. So we've had nearly £1 million for the 3-bed flats. We've had 2.7 million just for the 2 beds. And if we then change this to 1 beds, let's see if there's anything in the local area. Doesn't seem to be anything nearby. But that's, again, similar type of development, 380,000 for a 1-bed. Now, assuming they get those prices, you know, now you can see why £2.7 million of profit is possible on one site if you know what you're doing. So, you know, that's just an insight, and you know, with practice comes everything. So, you know, you get better at this more and more. But, you know, this is really, when you know what you're doing, when you know what to look for, this is how simple it can be. You know, one site, one building, you secure it. Yes, it's expensive, and I understand that not everyone can afford it. So we'll look at other sites all around the country to show how this is done as well. But just looking at this one site, they've unlocked millions in one site, and that could just change your entire portfolio. So that's how it's done. So let me know in the comments if you like this video, and if you want to see any other areas for me to look at, then I'll do that, and we can make a thing of this. And yeah, we can just show you how planning can unlock huge amounts of profit all around the country, no matter where you are. Thanks for watching.